This sighting comes to us by way of bfro.net. I'll leave a link in the description. They've got lots of good reports over there. This particular report happened April 15th through 21st, 2007. The witness tells us that they were hunting near Shimmick Forest in an area called Croton Unit. The nearest town was Argyle. The nearest road is Iowa Highway 27. The observer says, "I do not know what I saw, but I do know it was something that should not have been there, and it will remain with me for the rest of my life. I was turkey hunting one morning approximately 4 years ago. I have never told my story because I feel people will not believe me. It rained all night long, which allowed me to walk into the forest in complete silence, no leaves crackling, etc. I set up on a hillside overlooking a small creek and valley. It was nearly pitch black due to the overcast sky, but soon the rain stopped and the forest became brighter. Shortly after, I realized I was sitting within 15 feet of several birds that were roosted in a tree next to me. I didn't know they were there until they started shaking the rain off. My gun was already propped on my knee and pointed at my decoy. As it became brighter, I could make out most of the valley floor, and I continued to watch the birds roosted next to me. Soon after one of the birds gobbled, I began hearing something off in the distance almost immediately. I remember this because it was a very strangely paced sound. The rhythm of it seemed odd. Nothing I could think of would make a sound like this. I could see down the valley to my right for a fairly long distance. However, to my left, a separate hillside came out, and I could not see the valley in that direction. The noise continued with an almost perfect rhythm for several minutes with only occasional breaks. It continued to get louder. I soon realized the sound I was hearing was coming from up the valley in the direction I could not see. The turkeys in their roost next to me stopped gobbling and remained silent. A few moments later, as the forest became fairly bright and I could see most everything around me, all of the birds roosted in the tree flew down and hit the forest floor running. They didn't even seem to notice the decoy. I remained perfectly still, watching the birds run through the forest down to my right through the valley. They acted as though something spooked them. At first I thought maybe I had spooked them, but then it occurred to me that the sound had stopped about the same time the birds took off. As soon as the birds were out of sight, the noise began again. I remained still and leaning against a large ash tree. Maybe 1 minute after I lost sight of the birds, the sound was becoming much louder, and I realized what it might be. My first instinct was that another hunter was walking through the forest. However, to this day, I will never forget what I saw in the coming moments. The sound, with an almost steady rhythm, reminded me of what it would sound like if I were walking on dry leaves in the forest. There was not a drop of wind that morning, and I believe the valley might have been echoing the sound. A few moments later, I caught sight of it, maybe 50 yards to my left, coming into view on the bottom edge of the valley. At first, I thought it was a hunter in a ghillie suit, but upon closer examination, I realized this was no human wearing a camo outfit. It continued to walk upright on 2 feet down the valley toward my right. When the creature got to the bottom of the hill outcropping I was sitting on, it stopped dead in its tracks and remained perfectly still momentarily. I think it was at this point that I truly realized what I was seeing. When it stopped and stood still, it became nearly invisible in the forest. It seemed like an eternity passed while I sat against this tree, uncontrollably shaking. I was scared out of my wits, even with a 10-gauge shotgun propped on my knee, pointed in the direction of the creature. What happened next scared me so badly that I would have bet my life I was going to have a heart attack. The creature turned its head and looked directly at me. I stared directly into the eyes of this creature for an unknown amount of time. It made no sound. It did not move, only stared at me. I was in full camouflage, including a face mask, so maybe it was not sure what I was. Shaking so badly at this point, the only thing I could think of was to defend myself. I clicked the safety off of my shotgun. When I did this, the creature went into an almost crouching position, but it seemed more like it was preparing to move quickly. The stare down went on for what seemed like forever. I readied my shotgun, no longer afraid to move, since it was apparent I had been seen. When I positioned my left hand under the forearm of my shotgun, the creature sprang up, nearly causing me to pull the trigger. It continued its walk through the forest with its head turned, watching me. I continued pointing my gun at it. I never pulled the trigger. I was so afraid I didn't know what to do. Eventually, I lost sight of it. I jumped as soon as it was gone and ran back to my truck without stopping to rest once. To this day, I will never forget what I saw or the feeling of absolute terror that overcame me. I do not want to be famous, nor do I want my story posted all over the internet. I just thought I should tell somebody my story. Goes on and says, also notice I have never returned to that area and never will. Other witnesses, none. Other stories, no, I have not. Time and conditions, dawn, light rain ended just before daybreak, and the clouds were beginning to dissipate. It was going to be a sunny day. And the environment was hardwood forest. Creek bottoms and hilly land are the norm. Shimmick Forest is very near. Now, the investigator on this was Steve Moon. It says, I spoke with the witness via telephone. He recounted his experience as though it were yesterday. Additional details about the creature he observed emerged during our conversation. Witness impressed upon me that it was an extremely quiet morning. It had rained and there was no wind. He was able to walk it silently. He heard this creature a full 2 to 3 minutes before seeing it. Because it had so much weight, the sound of it walking was rhythmic. While witness was watching the creature walk gracefully through the valley, it would occasionally stop next to a tree and touch the leaves of the tree, as though examining it. It did this 2 or 3 times. Witness explained that each time it stopped, the creature seemed to completely disappear, which totally baffles the witness. The creature was well over 6 feet tall and was extremely broad-shouldered, but was not deep-chested. Its arms were way too long, larger than they should have been. It was filthy, and it had a bad smell. He could smell it well after it went away. Witness could not tell if the creature had hair or fur. In the low light, the color of the creature was a dark gray. Witness is convinced that the creature saw his turkey decoys. He was well hidden behind a brush pile with only his head showing to the creature. He also stated that the turkeys that were roosting in the tree next to him had to have heard the creature as well, and that they hit the ground running when they flew out of the tree, just before the creature came into view. I found the witness to be very credible. He is an avid outdoorsman with a good grasp of the local environment and its flora and fauna. He has not been back to the area of the sighting, but would be willing to go there with an investigator. The Des Moines and Mississippi rivers form the southern and eastern borders of Lee County, Iowa, in the southeastern corner of the state. Nearby Shimmick State Forest and numerous state and county parks have been established along the Des Moines River and Lee and adjacent Van Buren counties. There have been numerous Bigfoot sightings reported along the tributary rivers of the Mississippi in the eastern half of Iowa. The southern portion of the state experiences considerably milder winters than areas of the state further north. An unusual diversity of both fauna and flora exists in the southeast corner. Yeah, what a great story. Until next time, this is UFO Warning. Over and out.